Cabin 13 Productions.
What?
They poured him out into the.
Damn.
Did you say calm and stormy night?
What stormy night is calm? The Knights of Vengeance.
The Knights of Vengeance.
Y'all are the Knights of Vengeance. Let's
Back to
dive in.
9/11.
Yeah, back to that. Come on, man. Back to something that's not a joke.
Yeah.
Well, and this could very well be interpreted. I definitely said that.
He said interpreted.
I'm such a loser, sweating God, I'm the worst.
In times of great need, we often find ourselves seeking help in ways that are difficult to comprehend. As pattern-seeking individuals, we look for answers from a higher being, the stars, our ancestors, or even mediums and fringe topics. But what happens when we feel cornered, on the verge of death, and begin receiving answers from a presence that we have never seen or even heard before? The third man syndrome not only describes such experiences, but also has been noted in exploration, cultural religions, and significant world events, particularly here in America. So tonight we'll be discussing these cases and explore the question, what is the third man syndrome, and why does it occur? Welcome back to the Woodsman Podcast. We're your hosts, Brent Murphy,
And Joey Rucker.
and we are on Season 4, Episode 2.
We have officially gotten back on a roll of weekly episodes.
And let me tell you, I low-key didn't miss it.
I didn't miss the grind. Yeah,
I didn't miss the grind, but I
was
enjoy the
napping
quality.
before we got here. I was in one of those nice, not when you wake up not knowing what year it is. It was just one of those nice, perfect.
You had like the lines on
my
the face.
yeah,
type
line on the
of-
face. My back is stiff. I was just like, oh, I don't want to wake up right now.
I love that. I too took a really long nap. I was so freaking tired. For anyone who doesn't remember, Joey and I now work at the same place, and let me tell you,
It's a
having to
grind.
be on at 6:30 a.m. on a Sunday is not the move. it's not the move. I'm tired. Joey's tired. We're tired. And happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
Oh, yeah.
Today we are recording at January 19th. Tomorrow will be Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Joey, I hope you have a great holiday tomorrow. I will be installing at 7 a.m. It's going to be a great time.
Not doing that.
Yeah, you're going to be sleeping. That's what you're going to be doing.
It's gonna be great.
It's gonna be a great time.
Just remember all the fat cash you're gonna earn, all the things you can buy. That's the
Yeah.
nice thing about work, bro.
I will say, I do have a little personal update. I'm sorry, Mom, if this is the one episode that you happen to listen to, but I officially have enough money for a motorcycle. And I'm currently in talks of purchasing.
Yeah.
Possibly this week or next week. I might bite the bullet and just slam down the cash and be like, here's my money.
I mean, we have all wanted to do it, so I'm not gonna judge you on your decision. I totally get the want, the feel, the
You don't
need
see
for the-
you don't seem enthused by my
I have given up my dream of being a motorcyclist.
Why,
It's just-
bro?
I fancy my knees, and I just know
That's why
I'm
you
gonna
gotta
lose them.
you gotta dress for the slide, not the ride, man. You know, or
It's
no.
not even. but
Yeah,
but
yeah,
what
that's what it is.
But even if I'm not scraped up, I don't have a single scratch on my body, that won't stop my bones from just
That's why.
crank.
That's why you gotta know how to fall, man. That's why you gotta know how to. It's the same thing when you're a kid. You gotta learn how to fall early, so that way you just know how to do it.
I don't know, dude. I've seen videos where people fall fine, or at least it seems fine, and then like they go to brace, and then they hit something, and just it's the one pinky that hits the asphalt wrong, and it's just crunk.
Yeah, you gotta, dude. I learned how to fall from a young age because I used to fall quite a bit. I used to fall quite a bit. And I've learned, you gotta like roll to your left. Like if you're right-handed, you roll to your left, you keep your arm like tucked in, and you hit flat right here first. Or for our audio listeners, you land on the top part, like not your shoulder, but like you land on the top part of your
like
arm.
on your bicep.
Yeah. And then you just twist. You twist, because you can't land with your hands out because boom, snapping wrists. You can't land feet first because boom, snapping ankles. But you hit the bicep and it's like, it's a strong bone. You gotta be hitting it like elbow first if you're gonna be snapping that bone. And then you just pray.
Yes. I mean, I feel as though my family's probably cursed. I've had 2 family members, both from
This
the
is
same
true.
bloodline.
I'm literally buying the bike from one of them.
Because they won't ride it anymore after they crash.
Hey, well, I'm getting it for a steal. So, cursed or not, I'm getting it for a steal, buddy. Oh man,
let's
we got some light housekeeping.
Come back into housekeeping.
We got some light housekeeping. For a little update, again, today is January 19th, the day of recording, and we are, man, it doesn't look good. I'm looking at the outline now, and I'm like, it is better, but my God. So the Palisades fire right now in LA, there's like 6 fires going on right now, but the Palisades one is probably like the worst one. I don't know if you personally saw, but one of the pods that we listened to, Two Bears, the Palisades is actually where Tom used to live, and he said he was literally checking in with like all his like old neighbors and everything. Their houses are gone.
Really?
The school that Ellis, his son, went to, gone. Like the CVS he used to go to all the time, gone. Like, yeah, it's like everything that he knew and loved.
I haven't given my boys a listen in a while. I gotta hop
It's been
back
a while.
on the Two Bears train.
I mean, I would love to find a picture of Gumbus the cat from TikTok and compare it side by side with Bert Kreischer.
Yeah,
we found a cat the other
I've
day
never
that
seen
looks
anything more uncanny.
It looks so much like him, bro. Like Gumbus is Bert as a cat. Like it's
true.
wild.
It's true.
But going back to the sad and dark part of this housekeeping, the fire has currently burned 23,713 acres.
Which it's crazy because you remember how on last week's episode I had mentioned there was a fire we didn't talk about, which was like that very recent one over by Isaac's house.
Yeah,
That one ended around 24,000 acres at the end of it, and the fact that this one is only 43% contained
is scary.
It's really sad.
Yeah. So if you live in LA, we're praying for you guys. I couldn't imagine losing everything you own to a fire. It's quite literally insane. But we do want to reiterate our resources that you guys can find. Go to on Instagram. You can at All Power Books. They're a drop-off location and a pickup center for a whole bunch of donations by people.
There's also It's Bigger Than Us, turning their headquarters into the distribution hub that will deliver water to various locations.
Which, I mean, that props to them.
Yeah.
It's not easy transporting water. I don't know if you've realized how heavy water is, but my God.
Speaking of transporting water, actually, I saw this TikTok the other day where I think it was probably in line with the whole Palisades?
Yeah, Palisades.
Topic, which was the helicopters were flying down and picking up water from people's pools.
Yes.
This lawyer guy was talking about like the legal reality of that, and they actually, according to this one guy on TikTok, so please don't take my word for it, but he claims he's a lawyer.
He's a TikTok lawyer, guys.
He's a
TikTok lawyer.
But he said that apparently the government actually has to like pay you like per scoop of water that they take out of your pool, which I did not know.
That's interesting. The only thing I like low-key chuckled that you didn't hear it, chat, but like I low-key chuckled because when Joey said that, I just remember seeing a TikTok where they did that and a guy used the green screen thing and he just comes up, like like they picked him up in the helicopter, and he was like, "What?"
Oh
and
my
he had
God.
like a snorkel on and everything, and that's the first thing I thought of, and I was just like,
Was it one of our favorite comedians, like Bert or Tom, who like did a bit about a guy, like one of the worst deaths
"Probably."
was a guy swimming in his pool and he got scooped out bad,
I think it was.
and they poured him out into the
My God, I hate joking
And then-
about fires,
No,
but
but like the whole
God,
joke
that
was
bit
that
was
the
so
comedian
good.
Was like he said, at least he died doing what he loved, or whatever. Or maybe he was he was a
Swimming.
scuba diver. That's what it was. He was out in the ocean
Oh, and they
doing what
just
he
picked
loved.
him up in the ocean. Just
Yeah, because come to think of it, how would they not see that there's a body in the pool?
they wouldn't. I
it
don't
was
think
in
they're
the-
looking. I don't think they're looking.
Oh,
Man, but
You hate to
also,
see it.
Also, go to Milo's
Yes,
_
yes.
sanctuary. They are housing small and large animals along with their owners, which is amazing. So shout out them. If you are in need, definitely hit up some of those resources. There's also a benefit concert I know in LA that's going to be happening at the Troubadour. A whole bunch of artists are going to be coming together, and 100% of the proceeds are going to, I would say I know exactly where it's going to, but it's directly for like fire relief for LA, home victims and everything, because a lot of these people in LA, even though they're musicians and all that stuff, they live in LA too. So it's like they're definitely 100% affected by this. So if you can, go to a cool little show, go to a cool little show and
do it.
support, like small bands that are affected by this too. It's pretty crazy.
also, one last quick breaking news, housekeeping. I just wanted to mention. So this is sort of tied to our last episode. For any of our YouTube watchers, our audio listeners got it on time, but we are testing the waters of a different formatting system for our videos so that hopefully you guys can get a true 1080 60 FPS video, because we want you guys to have quality. We don't want it to be bad, and YouTube's compression rate is just
terrible.
Terrible.
It's absolutely terrible, guys.
And
It's compressing. For anyone who's into specs, we're running Blackmagic 6K cinema cameras
Mhm.
right now. And if you guys have noticed, the video is like borderline 720.
It's ridiculous.
Like, it is crazy how much YouTube's compression is ass.
Mhm.
So we didn't know it was gonna take as long as it was. We're going on over 24 hours, I think. On
Not over
upload.
24 yet.
Not yet?
We're
Okay.
currently at, what would that be? Almost 24.
Like 22 or some shit.
It's
Like,
midnight, so that's what, 12/6, so it's 18 hours of
yeah, it takes a long time to put these videos out now. Apparently,
yeah. So it's not
so
great.
We're sorry for being late last week, but at the same time, we hope you guys understand, because the quality is not boof.
Yes,
So
and we're testing the waters as well, like I said, of like what we can do to also continue to speed up the process and not like have it be crazy upload times every week.
yeah,
This is the first time we've played with the new resolution, and we mixed it up.
we did not know
So-
it was gonna be this way.
But I just wanted to announce that. So hopefully next week's episode, or this, what you're currently watching, came out on time. I'm hoping.
praying. Well, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, or stories or inquiries on Cabin 13 Productions or our studio in general, you can head over to thewoodsmanpod@gmail.com.
You could also interact with us on Instagram and X, which is @WoodsmanPod.
And lastly, you guys can subscribe to our Patreon for our candid, uncensored show, Back to the Cabin, at patreon.com/thewoodsmanpodcast. So without further ado, let's get on with the show.
Yeah. So Brent, tell me, what is the third man syndrome?
Well, sir, I'm glad you asked. It's actually the guy who's standing right behind you right now. I made him look. Ah, man. Well, if you guys didn't realize by Joey's question, this week's episode is on the third man syndrome.
Or by the intro at the beginning of the episode.
That is also true, but you know, we ain't gotta worry about that. All right, well, let's just dive in. So the third man syndrome refers to a psychological phenomena that occurs when a person in extreme stress or a near-death situation, kind of like being lost in the woods or, you know, surviving a plane crash or something like that, you know, that person will basically feel the presence of an unseen or sometimes in some cases even a seen person who offers guidance or even physical support in their time of need.
It's interesting because I'm not gonna lie, I didn't know about the third man syndrome until we started talking about doing an episode on it for the podcast. But I don't think, have you ever had one? I don't think I've ever had anything like that before. I've had instances where like
close to death enough to to have one show up, you know. But,
yeah.
I mean, there's quite a few. I mean, we'll get into some of them. There are some crazy stories of the third man syndrome happening to people, but yeah, it normally happens to people who are in like in extreme
right on the verge,
stress,
yeah,
like
or
right
stress
on the verge,
too, yeah.
like of death type of thing. A lot of people who climb Mount Everest have had this happen to them as well. So part of that kind of goes into like maybe like the neuroscience of everything, but possibly like, you know, high climate, high stress, you know, your body's already in overdrive trying to get you through like an expedition, you know, type of thing. But some of those cases, surprisingly, are actually the ones where people physically see another person, which is like creepy.
I don't think
Like
I've ever been so stressed that I've like hallucinated before.
Yeah.
Maybe heard things, and I mean, people could deny my Shadow Man story, but I wasn't exactly stressed or anything at those
You were
times.
just driving.
I was just driving,
You
and
were
the
also
first time I
just
was just
hearing
like
my-
walking up saying hi, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, there's a ghost over there." But
Yeah.
I've never had anything where it's like I've been so stressed that I've seen things,
Yeah.
or close to death.
I don't think I've ever had that type of experience either. I mean, I've had high stress, but never enough for someone to just, you know, it's almost like as scary as someone like, imagine having high stress for like a midterm or something. And imagine someone walking up, sitting down next to you, helping you with the answers, and then they just are gone.
They're not,
You
there.
know,
They're
like that
never
would
there.
be so scary, you know, but that's not a life or death situation.
Yeah.
That's high stress though. But unfortunately, I've never had someone come and give me the answers to a midterm. But
I mean, we're gonna get into.
I thought you were
all
gonna
the-
say, "Oh, I have
No,
the
no,
paranormal
no.
person," and they definitely gave me the answers to the test.
I do have my own take on the third man syndrome, and it's going to kind of get into things that we're going to talk about later. But I do have my opinion on it and what I think of it and what it is and stuff like that. So
I'm interested. I'm interested. Well, let's kind of dive in. This one is going to be on the longer side. I do have quite a bit of information, but we're just going to tackle it, and hopefully you guys enjoy it just as much as I do, because I think it's fascinating. The whole thing is just insane.
yeah.
But the term, the third man syndrome itself, was actually coined by the explorer Ernest Shackleton. And he actually had a third man syndrome. And it was during his Antarctic expedition where he described the experience of feeling accompanied by an invisible figure during the life-threatening conditions of obviously being in an expedition in the Antarctic, you know, Alps and everything, which is crazy. While the experience can be deeply comforting, it's also still a bit of a mystery as to why or how these things even happen. Like I said, a lot of people speculate it has a lot to do with like the neuro part of the body, you know, things with your brain, things firing off, you know, like, hey, we're going to die.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Red
type of
alert,
thing.
red alert.
Red alert. But there are some very interesting takes with this, which we will also dive into some of the reasons and theories that some people kind of give for some of these. The first one we kind of got is like the psychological coping, you know, part of it, kind of having your brain coping with the extreme stress or isolation or, you know, near death type of situation. And basically, their minds might create a sense of companionship to help reduce the overwhelming fear and anxiety that goes into that. And the brain could also use this psychological coping mechanism as a way to stay focused and motivated to survive in general.
I've always found that this like part of how the brain works to be so interesting, like how
Yeah.
it will just not necessarily hallucinations or anything, but it will just fabricate feelings and things and
Yeah.
emotions and stuff just to like if it's like we need to figure something out because like nothing whatever's going on right now, nothing's right.
Yeah,
Like,
nothing is
and the
right
brain
about the
knows. And
situation.
I also think, did we ever do an episode on the brain? Because the brain
No,
would be.
there's so much that goes
There's
into that,
so
and I am
much.
so dumb to try and explain the brain.
I
like-
remember trying to do our episode on sleep, and I was like, I feel like we did not do this justice.
We did
because
not- we're
there's
not-
way too much
we have
to it.
no we are a master of nothing. Like we
Mhm.
we do not know what we're talking about. We study these topics. Well, for the most part right now, I've been the one studying these topics in depth for a week, and then I forget quite literally everything the next week. So
I don't know. I actually do think that this podcast has been helping me like remember certain things. Now I can.
I've learned-
Please do not ask me
I've
to list an
learned a
example.
lot.
But
I've learned a lot from this pod for sure.
we've talked a lot about a lot of things. I mean, we've done this for over a year now. So
Yeah. A new topic every single week.
every
you
week,
know,
and
every
so
week.
doing all these informational things, I do think I've learned a lot, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I just find it interesting how like the brain is so protective of the body
Yeah.
that it will just like cope, and
Well,
find ways to cope.
It's funny you say that because you saying that actually reminds me of something that is quite interesting. Like really, when you think about it, when you think of Moon Knight, at least the show adaptation, it's
Mhm.
the same thing, bro. The whole thing is like his brain trying to protect him
Yeah.
from like his past and like the things he went through and everything. And it quite literally is like a third man syndrome because it's him. He is
Khonshu
technically
or
his
his other self.
his other selves, at least in the show, I would say are kind of his third man syndrome because they're like, okay, high stress, you're going to die. I'm going to take over. And then boom, blacks out. He
Yeah.
doesn't, have any conscious recollection of what's going on. It's very interesting, especially now that we have been searching up a lot of these things. I do see common themes in shows or movies and stuff that we've been watching. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very interesting. Well, one of the other reasonings or theories that people have about this are hallucinations due to stress or exhaustion. We kind of went over that. So
Which
I won't
happens
go-
to a lot of in a lot of different scenarios. It's not just like high stress. Like the brain creates hallucinations all the time based
it
on terrible
almost
conditions.
kind of like maybe adds things to try and make sense of what's going on.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those things like there's a lot of that with like, alien encounters and stuff too, where people are like, does your brain kind of, it either blocks it out or something else is blocking it out because you physically cannot comprehend what you're seeing, or you may see something in a different way, which is very odd.
Yeah.
Because your brain's just like, what is
It's
this?
trying
Like,
to
what
piece
is
together
going
a
on?
puzzle
Like,
with where the pieces don't fit.
Yeah.
So it's like it's taking the information that it knows like all the time that it learns every day, but then it takes in a situation where it's like it's not right. So I'm just gonna throw in
yeah, I'm gonna try and
what I
fit
think
in whatever
should be
I
here.
can.
Yeah. And it doesn't always add up. It doesn't always make sense.
Yeah. So you also have the evolutionary perspective on the
Evolutionary.
theory. Some psychologists I can't even talk. Some psychologists even suggest that this phenomena could be rooted in evolutionary survival mechanisms. So early humans might have relied on their social connections for survival. So a feeling of like quote unquote companionship in times of distress could have been a protective or motivational mechanism that kind of like encourages people to press on even when things seem pretty freaking bleak and you're on the verge of death,
Yeah.
It's almost like the mom strength kind of thing, when you're
yeah.
in dire need of like trying to save your kid or something. Like you have stories of women lifting cars and shit like that, and it's like, I'm sorry,
But in
what?
this case, it would be kind of like you were seeking out help
Your
from
your brain's giving it to you,
Hmm.
like, which is interesting. And then the last one I have here is the subconscious guidance for problem solving. And some theories actually involve that the subconscious mind itself, uh, when rational thought is overwhelmed in moments of crisis, the subconscious could literally, like Moon Knight, just step in to like offer, solutions or directions, almost kind of like with Avatar: The Last Airbender, and Aang is on the turtle, and he's like, I can't kill this guy. It's against all my beliefs. So what do I do? And he technically has like his subconscious, because all the avatars are in his mind, literally come out of his body and try and give him solutions to a problem that he kind of knows the answer to. It kind of like is buried. The answers are kind of buried
It's a
deep
good way to
inside
think
you.
about it. I didn't even think about that.
So it's like I said, it's very interesting when you, especially with this topic in general, because we'll dive in on in our next section where, you have modern day accounts, but you also have a lot of religious accounts that you could probably sum up to being like, well, if it's not in a religious perspective, it very well could have been, a third man type of syndrome, where maybe the subconscious kind of tried to take over and tried to, help you out and get you through. So it is very interesting. But yeah, let's dive in.
Yeah, whoa.
All right. So we have a couple of modern day accounts, which I think are pretty insane. We're gonna go a lot more in depth in like kind of older accounts, just trying to compare and contrast. But I do have two people which I think are just, their stories are wild, and they're documented. So I think it's pretty cool. But starting off in 1916, we actually have Ernest Shackleton, like we had mentioned previously. Um, he he went through a lot. I mean, my man was an explorer to the fullest. I mean, this dude was like, I think they had lost a ship like in the Arctic, and bros like to ice, because they're like, the Arctic is ice, and they're trying to like sail, and like
Dealing
the ship
with the
gets
Titanic
stuck.
situation.
Like like the ship gets stuck, and bros leave the ship to find help, but they're in Antarctica, like type of thing. Because again, this is 1916, so like you got to think of what ships were back then and everything.
I was just
like,
gonna say, actually, that's funny you say that, because I was just gonna say I am so bad at hearing a year
There's still
and
like
then
pirate ships,
envisioning the
like,
technology
yeah.
advancements.
Well, think of like Sea of Thieves. It's that type of ship still, because you still have steam power that's kind of getting popular. So you have steamships and everything, but not everyone can afford that. It's pretty much like a luxury car. Like yeah, they're around, but like what normal person has the money for one? When it's first starting. So that was actually like pretty much like a pirate ship type of thing. So imagine getting a pirate ship stuck in ice, and then you gotta like,
Full
okay,
gallon.
well, I guess we just
Take
gotta
the sloop.
figure it out. Yeah, a little bit bigger than the sloop.
Okay,
I will
okay.
say it was a little bit big. It was probably a brigantine.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. For anyone who's not into pirates or anything, that's your fault. You should listen to our pirate episode and we explain all these ships. But whatever, it's cool. It's fine.
Shameless plug, a pirate's life for me.
Well, again, as I previously mentioned, Ernest Shackleton like famously experienced the third man syndrome, and he actually coined the term during his journey in Antarctica in general. Shackleton and his men were stranded on Elephant Island with no way of knowing if they could even be rescued in general, which is terrifying. That is a terrifying thing to go through. Shackleton actually reported feeling an inexplicable, comforting presence during their desperate trek across the ice to find help. So bros were essentially walking on the ocean, like trying to find help, which is like, I could not imagine. If for anyone who doesn't know Antarctica, there's nothing there and no one lives there. Like there's nothing out there. So a little scary.
They have such crazy weather too. Like sometimes having
those videos that I
24
see
hour
with
days
like,
or 24-hour nights for days on end. Like,
yeah, that is no. Nope.
I've seen
I'm
videos
good.
of people being like, "Oh my god, the sun came out today, guys," and it's like a genuine shock for people who live there.
They're like so thankful. They're
Yeah.
so thankful.
And even then, it only comes out for like 3 hours, and
they're
then
like,
it's gone.
Woo! Like, oh man. So he actually writes about this in his book called South, and I actually pulled a quote from that. And so this is coming from Shackleton himself, and I quote, "I know that during that long and racking march of 36 hours over the unnamed mountains and glaciers of South Georgia, it seemed to me often that there were 4, not 3. End quote. Obviously, I think he might be referring to another part of the expedition because, again, they were on ice when the boat one happened, but I believe that Shackleton has experienced this more than one time. That was just one direct quote that I could really find where he was talking about this. And I just think it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But some members of the expedition actually described feeling accompanied by an unseen force and a figure as well, or hearing like an audible voice offering them
That's
guidance
interesting.
and courage to keep going as well.
To know that like he wasn't the only one.
Yeah, so Shackleton was not the only one during some of these expeditions that like this happened to, which is just all the more reason to kind of question like, okay, maybe it's not fully psychological.
Yeah.
That's like
Yeah.
that's what I'm getting, because I don't think it's like, one person having it, another person having it. I would be curious to know if like they all had it at the same time, because then it's like, how's like 25 men or so all hear it at the same time, and it's all the same, message and all that kind of stuff, which would be very, very interesting. But that's just a little one about Shackleton. I won't dive too much into him because you could go on forever just about the man's life in general, because my man was like, he was a man's man. That's all I'll say. Like, when you think of like, oh, what would it be like to be a man like in the 1900s?
Shackleton was it.
Like Shackleton was the guy. Like he was the guy, bro. Like,
I mean,
he
it
was not
sounds
caring
like it.
about dying at like 30 or something. Bro was like, I'm just gonna do whatever I want to.
I'm just going for it.
Just full, yeah, he full sent life. He full sent life, dude. It's wild. But this story that we have right here, especially if you live in America, and I say that because we do have Aussie listeners, we do have UK listeners, and all that kind of,
You mean
all that jazz.
the Knights?
The Night,
Can we call our Aussie listeners the Knights?
the Knights, the Knights of the Night,
the Knights of Justice.
the Knights of Vengeance.
The Knights of Vengeance.
Y'all are the Knights of Vengeance. I'm sorry. I'm
So
sorry you
much,
keep
so-
doing it.
so good. This is a bit that will never die,
never
and
gonna
no one's
die.
gonna even appreciate, because I'm
Dude.
sure our one Aussie listener listened like maybe twice.
We're gonna
and
be
then
on
was just like,
season 10, and we're still gonna be doing the bit. And anyone who hasn't listened before, they're gonna be like, "What the
What are
hell
they
are
doing?"
they doing, bro? Like, what is going on?" Oh man, but like I said, this story kind of hits a little bit closer to home because this actually is a 9/11 story.
Actually, yes, I remember. I read this one while I was going through some of our notes before we recorded, and I actually thought that this one was very interesting. So I
Yeah.
do think that chat's gonna get a kick out of this one.
Yeah, so I'm actually just going to read the whole article that I had found. If you guys would like to read it and you guys want all the sources and everything going into it, you can find the article on allthat'sinteresting.com. This was written in December of 2024, so it was pretty recent. And it was written by Kalina Fraga and edited by Jacqueline Anglis.
I think that's right.
Yeah. So let's just dive in. Let's dive into the story, and then we can see how we're feeling after.
On that fateful day,
It was a cold and stormy night.
it was a calm and stormy.
Stop it.
Chat doesn't even understand that.
We had a camping trip, and was gonna tell a ghost story, and I
It was
said a
so
calm
good.
and stormy night instead of.
And my dad was the only one to catch it too.
I
didn't
know
even
he
catch
called me out so
He
fast.
was,
I was
he
like,
was like,
"Damn,
"Did you say calm and stormy night?"
what stormy night is calm?" All right.
Anyway, moving on.
Let's dive in. Let's
Back to
dive in.
9/11.
Yeah, back to night. Come on, man. Back to something that's not a joke.
Yeah.
Well. So September 11th, 2001. It started as a normal day for Ron DeFrancesco. Per usual, he arrived at work at the World Trade Center in Manhattan and then made his way to his office on the 84th floor of the South Tower. At 8:46 a.m., American Airlines Flight 11 violently was hijacked by 5 Al-Qaeda terrorists and crashed into the North Tower. At first, DeFrancesco stayed put. It was the other tower, not his, that had been hit, and the instructions blaring over the intercom promised that there was, quote, no need to evacuate. But after talking with a friend, DeFrancesco decided to leave the building anyways for his safety. Minutes later, at 9:03 a.m., United Airlines Flight 175 crashed into floors 77 through 85 in the South Tower. DeFrancesco managed to make it into the Stairway A, the only unobstructed escape route. But as he and the others made their way down, they encountered 2 people who told them that the smoke and flames made it impossible to descend any further. DeFrancesco and most of the others followed the other 2 towards the roof, but as they climbed, he became increasingly nervous. Eventually, DeFrancesco decided to change his mind and decided to go down instead. Hindered by smoke and a collapsed wall, DeFrancesco began to fear that he made the wrong choice. But then, the third man phenomena began when an unseen male voice told DeFrancesco to, quote, get up. As DeFrancesco told Geiger, he could both hear the voice and feel a physical presence, though no one was there. I was led to the stairs. I don't think something grabbed my hand, but I was definitely led, he later recalled of his miraculous escape from the South Tower. There was still danger, so it led me to the stairwell, led me to break through, led me to run through the fire. Somebody was encouraging me. That's not where you go. You don't go toward the fire. Then, once he made it through the flames and the smoke to the 76th floor, the voice vanished. DeFrancesco was able to get out of the building. He was the last person to escape the South Tower before it had collapsed.
That's a crazy story.
Yeah.
I really like it. I think it's very interesting. And the thing that's different from Shackleton.
Close.
Shackleton's story is that he didn't feel a presence or a fourth person and heard he kind of heard voices, but this one is he's getting clear directions.
He's getting hey,
don't go to the fire.
Go here. Don't go here. Break through.
Keep going.
This
Fire's
is
hot.
very much if whatever this phenomena is, he would have died.
Yeah.
It's insane. Now, I did mention that he was talking to Geiger. This is in a book that we will mention towards the end if you guys have any questions about any of this stuff and you guys want to read about it. There is a book by the author with the last name of Geiger that we will go into, and you can read all about it from him. Man, literally just has spent his life researching the third man syndrome, so it is pretty insane. But yeah.
Well, we're gonna go into some also religious examples of what could be in relation to the third man syndrome.
Yeah.
However, before we do that, I have breaking news for us, chat.
Yeah.
After, I think, 19 hours.
Oh, the video's finally up on YouTube?
The video that you guys watched last week.
It really is a mind. It is a mind
finally
game.
posted. Save. The video has been uploaded to YouTube.
So we hope you guys like the better quality. Happy season 4.
Woo! Season 4 premiere.
Oh, man.
It's fine. It's only
love
9
that.
hours late.
Yeah, easy.
I'm just happy it got out today.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
anyway,
we're good. We're not late. We're not late.
back to the third man syndrome.
Yeah.
We obviously went to Christian church, Christian schools growing up. We heard a lot about beings coming to biblical characters with a message of like fantastical things. So there are many stories that could be considered the third man syndrome if you kind of take into account like what the aspects of the
like the overlining message or like the reasoning is type of thing. Well, do you want to dive in to the first little story there?
Yeah, of course. I think this one to me is probably the best example. I mean, I don't know. We'll get into it, but this one is the most like there's another guy there. So.
Yeah, there's a whole other guy. So.
Yeah. So this one is talking about the story in the Bible in Daniel 3:16-30, the fiery furnace, a very, very popular story in the Christian community.
Yeah, if you've gone to Sunday school at all, you know the story.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah.
Definitely famous.
Definitely.
Definitely one of the good ones. Anyway, so if you don't know, for any of you who probably don't practice Christianity or find yourself following other religious values or whatever, this story is one of the most famous biblical stories that could be seen as resembling the third man syndrome in the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
Which, fun fact, those actually weren't their real names.
I actually know that, but I don't remember.
I can't remember what they are.
I can't remember what they are either.
Their names got changed.
Yeah.
From getting captured by Babylonia when Babylonia took over Israel and all that stuff. They were put into slavery. I know there's a little Bible facts for you guys, but yeah, they were all taken into slavery and everything. They were given like new names and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I feel like I used to know that.
I did. I used to know them, and I cannot remember what they are now.
It's been a while.
back to the
Back
third
to
man
the story.
syndrome.
These 3 guys were thrown into a fiery furnace by King Nebuchadnezzar for refusing to worship his golden image. When the king looked into the furnace once they were thrown in and he looked into the furnace, he was astonished to see not just the 3 men he put in there, but a 4th figure walking among them. He said, and I quote, "Look, I see 4 men walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like the son of the gods," which is Daniel 3:25. This mysterious figure is often interpreted, very often, I would say, as a lot of people, at least when I was growing up, saw him as Jesus. Like the Jesus before Jesus was around.
Yeah. Time slip.
Time slip. Yeah. Jesus just decided to take like a quick
detour.
He's
like, let me help out my boy Shadrach. For all we know,
we mentioned in our time travel episode, shameless plug, go check out the time travel episode. That time is more than likely not a line. It's a loop. It's a circle. It's all happening everywhere at once. So I mean, to be fair,
for someone who is outside of time,
he could very well
have drop in whenever he wants.
So who knows? But there are also some people.
You got it.
Some people also consider it to be just an angelic figure, one of God's followers, to have come in and helped them in this instance. In this context, the 4th man is a protective and comforting presence in the midst of peril. The men emerge unharmed from the fire, which could be seen as a miraculous intervention, similar to the feeling of a protective, unseen presence that guides and strengthens in moments of crisis. This is kind of where I want to give one of my first opinions on the third man syndrome, which is that I do think, I mean, in this regard, if you're a devout Christian, I do think that a lot of us do consider it to be an angelic figure or Christ or just God in general to have shown up. I don't think that this case scenario would be just
a trick of the mind.
Well, not even. Obviously, it's not a trick of the mind.
Yeah.
They didn't just go in the fire and then they were like,
I mean, the furnace was
Let's get out.
apparently so hot that the people that threw them in died from how hot it was.
yes,
So
that's
it's
true.
Like, this
Yes.
is like a,
This is like,
this is not getting put in an oven and you live through. I'm talking like guys died before they weren't even in the fire. And
Yeah.
they died because it was so hot. So
I think where we will likely talk more about this later, I do want to make my first claim, which is that I don't personally think, and again, we'll dive into it,
yeah.
but I don't think with the third man syndrome in particular, there are other beings about. I think that it could be a religious being, or I think it can be a trick of the mind, hallucinations, coping mechanisms. I don't think it's going to be any like supernatural entity of any kind. That's
Yeah,
just my
yeah.
opinion. But obviously, it's arguable. We'll talk about it more.
It's all a question because I don't think we have any of the real answers.
Exactly.
To be honest,
Yeah.
we just have theories about it. But I just found that like if any type of third man syndrome in the Bible, that's probably going to be your closest bet. Is
Yeah.
probably that one when you actually see another person.
But that's
which
why
is
I
wild,
feel
but-
like sometimes the third man
But
syndrome.
that's like a full divine intervention. I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of these people, it's more like, okay, here's where you go. This is what you do to get out of the situation. That one's we should be dead right now and on
Yeah.
fire and
Mhm.
not. So, yeah, pretty insane.
So we have another example here that could be in relation to the third man syndrome. This is the angelic visitation of Elijah. This comes from 1 Kings 19, 5 through 9. In 1 Kings 19, the prophet Elijah is fleeing from the queen Jezebel.
Get
who
out of
is-
here,
Get
Jezebel.
out of here. what kind of name is Jezebel?
What kind of name or anything? First of all,
I mean,
Matthew, Mark,
Elijah,
Luke,
I
and
don't-
John.
I don't
And
think I've
they're-
met a bad Elijah before.
I don't think I have either. I think all Elijahs are chill.
Yeah.
If your name is Elijah,
Yeah.
drop a cool comment or something,
Yeah. What's up, Elijah?
What's up, bud?
Anyway, to move on.
And then you got Jezebel.
Then Queen Jezebel, who threatened to kill him.
That took a turn. Well, she
Yeah.
got a dumbass name and she's out here trying to kill people. So
It's fine. It's fine. Elijah, exhausted and in despair, traveled a day's worth of time into the wilderness, wishing for death. It was at this moment that he experienced an intervention. An angel appeared to him, offering him food and water, and told him to rest. Elijah was strengthened by the food and went on to travel for 40 days and nights to Mount Horeb. Horeb is also a weird word, but
yeah,
are these mountains, ranges, and names, places like Mount Horeb still around, or is that like a lot of, we kind of have to just guess where those places were?
I mean,
because like we can go to
there are
Jerusalem and
there
Israel
are certain,
and stuff.
like mountains and stuff that have been talked about where they've found them. The thing is like a lot of names change depending on
That's a good point.
because you have to think if this is like thousands of years from
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
like people get taken over. Well, I mean, we have the stuff right now happening with Gaza and Syria and all that kind of stuff with, there's a full out war, going on. So a lot of stuff I feel maybe gets changed and, they're still there. They're just,
Yeah.
maybe not the names that we have associated, I guess, especially in the Bible and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah.
Well, to continue, if I can stop being so technologically illiterate, everybody, sorry about that. Though the angel is not a mysterious, third person in the same way that as in the third man syndrome, Elijah's experience shares similarities. In a moment of extreme distress, he feels the presence of someone who provides strength, sustenance, and guidance, even though he is alone in the wilderness. Which makes sense. It's kind of like you said with
You could take it either way.
Shackleton. That,
There we go.
when you're out there and you're like, are we even gonna get out of here? Like, I
Yeah,
don't
like
know.
what are
I
we
don't know
supposed to
if
do?
We're gonna get
Like,
out of this
I mean,
one,
bro's
boys.
life was being threatened by a queen, so it's like
Jezebel.
Jezebel.
We have one more, I believe, example as far as like Christian biblical stories that could relate to this phenomenon. which is the angel appearing to Hagar.
Which
Hagar.
which to me
Yeah.
personally,
I think it's
yeah, it's
Hagar.
Hagar. This one personally to me sounds the most like a third man syndrome. There isn't like really a divine intervention or anything like that, but it is one of those, well, I'll have you read it and then you
For
can
sure,
tell me
for
how
sure.
you feel.
This comes from Genesis 16:7 through 13. Hagar, the servant of Sarah and Abraham, experienced a form of third man syndrome when she was cast out into the wilderness after Sarah's jealousy towards her. Pregnant and alone, Hagar was in despair. At this moment, an angel appeared to her and told her not to be afraid, offering comfort and guidance. Why is it that angels are always just like, do not be afraid? I mean, actually, you know what? To be fair, I've thought about this before. I've actually thought about this. If angels showed up, right, in their angel form, could you imagine this giant being with like 30 eyes, 50,000 wings? They're all crazy.
Yeah.
And they're just like, do not be afraid.
I'd be like, no, I'm fucking afraid.
Bitch, I'm afraid.
I'm afraid.
I'm terrified.
I am scared. I am scared. Hey, I mean, little commonality. Hate to always bring it up every episode, but almost every single alien encounter starts with "Don't be afraid" either.
Do you think I probably asked you this at one point on the pod, but do you think that angels are aliens? If angels exist, of course, because obviously, but if aliens exist too,
I think there's a
it goes both
commonality.
ways.
I think there's a commonality. I mean, I do think the rotating, disc inside a disc, revolving type of thing with eyes and everything. I mean, how would you explain a UFO with lights on it and everything if you've never seen lights?
If I've never seen lights?
Well, no one in the Bible had lights. They had torches. They had fire.
Yeah,
I mean, like, how would you explain something that looks like a circle, that's illuminating light or whatever, I don't know. I think there's commonalities. I'm not sure,
I just find it funny to think about like, all
what
of
it is or isn't.
All of the most famous Bible stories of like angels coming down and do not be afraid, Mary.
Well, I mean,
and it's just like this crazy demon-like monster-looking alien thing.
Well, I mean, think about. I mean, every single culture has sky people in it, for a lack of a better word. I mean, every culture. I mean, like I think almost every single one has something about, we're either made from the stars or, the sky people came down, you fallen angels, like there's always like some little common trait of something coming from the sky here to earth, so I don't know, but I mean, I think we classify a lot of things that are probably not the right classifications, so it's like, just because of our cultural or our religious views, we kind of associate certain things, and I guess literature, we associate it with what we know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, same thing for them. They probably have never seen anything like what they've seen, obviously, regardless on if it's classified as an angel or not. Something coming down from the sky and telling you, "Lo, do not to be afraid."
It's like,
I'd be like, I'm afraid.
I may have just pissed my pants.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, to continue though, the angel told Hagar that she will have a son and that she would name him Ishmael. This encounter provided Hagar with reassurance and divine guidance during her moment of desperation. The angel could be seen as a comforting, guiding presence, and this story resembles the idea of an unseen figure providing hope and direction in life-threatening situations. You said this one reminds you the most of Third Man Syndrome?
I would, yeah. Because there's not
any divine intervention?
Well, because there's nothing really directly getting intervened. It's really just
other than an angel comfort. Coming and telling her, "Hey,"
that's not intervening. I'm like a divine intervention. Sorry, it's not like
other
Shadrach,
ones...
Meshach, and Abednego, where it's like they're thrown into a fire that definitely would have killed them, and then you have a fourth person there, and somehow they're magically not harmed. Or this one's literally
like a dude running from fires in the Twin Towers.
Yeah,
like, hey, left, turn left.
But I mean, like, it's not a direct
I
direct
see what you're saying.
intervention. I mean, even in the story with Elijah, I mean, it says the angel brought him food and water. That's like a direct, like, manipulating things around
I can't
you in order
remember
to
like
save you.
anything about Hagar from all the Bible stories.
She
Did
is
she get pregnant
with Abraham's son.
with Abraham's
Yeah.
son? Okay.
And fun fact, this is where the Abrahamic religions start to separate. Because while we follow Abraham and then his son, Isaac, I believe it's Islam. Could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's the Quran. They follow Hagar and her son.
Really?
And then that's where it starts to, where, you know, yeah. So it's interesting. It is a interesting little tidbit right there.
So annoying,
But yeah,
dude.
I
got
would
a
say
bug bite on my arm, and now it's like pissing me
it's
off.
starting, guys. It's a bug season.
Bug
is starting.
season's coming back.
No, but I would say that this story is probably like the most divine, or just an intervening without manipulation of anything around her.
Okay.
You know, she gets kicked out. She gets into the wilderness. She's like, I'm definitely gonna die out here. I'm pregnant, and then something comes to reassure her, like, hey, you're not gonna die. Everything's gonna be fine. Name your son this, and that was it. I mean, it didn't give her anything. It just,
Wonder why
you know.
the significance of angels telling you what your names of your children should be
I
like.
think there's power in names, but I believe it's like that for every culture.
Yes, I do too.
You know,
I was gonna say that, nah, but then I don't know. I do feel like there's. I feel like there's. I was named after Joseph and the Coat of Many Colors,
the
that
dream
one.
interpreter, bro.
And I will say that my entire life I've had so many crazy dreams. Not to say that naming me that made me a dreamer, but I do think that there is some, like you said, there is technically. I would agree that there's power in names. So
Yeah,
I do kind of.
and I think that stretches on beyond any cultural or religious thinking. I think you know, every culture kind of believes that there is power in like what you're named and your calling and all that kind of stuff. But yeah. Well, these accounts, while framed in theological terms in general, share some of the thematic like overlap with the third man syndrome, as we've kind of like covered, you know, in terms of like an unseen or a reassuring presence that kind of helps people like endure and persevere through like life-threatening moments and all that kind of stuff. But the third man syndrome actually isn't just something like to equate to the Bible. I actually, not gonna lie, I dug deep on this one, man. I dug deep, and I have found some other cultural religions that also have things or beings that could possibly be considered the third man syndrome.
Interesting.
So let's dive into this.
Let's hear some.
So in Hinduism, there are numerous stories of divine intervention or the presence of spiritual beings. Actual story we got right here is the story of Prahlada, which is also known as Vishnu's protection. So in the, I'm sorry, I'm gonna butcher these names, guys, but
I believe in
really
you.
hard.
I'm gonna say right now, Brent's gonna get every single one on the first try. Every single name.
You're putting a lot
It's gonna be great.
faith in me with these ones. Well, in the Bhagatva Purna.
First try.
Nailed it. The story of Prahlada, a devout child devoted to Lord Vishnu, offers a similar example. Despite being tortured by his father, King Hiranyakashipu, who sought to kill him, Prahlada is protected by the invisible and divine presence of Vishnu himself. When the king attempts to kill Prahlada, there we go, Vishnu manifests himself in various forms to ensure the child's safety. There we go. Although the third presence in this case is explicitly like divine, like Vishnu himself,
Yep.
the experience of being accompanied or protected by an unseen, benevolent force in times of great peril and distress resonates with the third man syndrome. So pretty interesting. We also have in various Native American traditions, there are stories of individuals being accompanied or guided by spiritual beings during challenging times, particularly when navigating dangerous situations or during periods of personal crisis. Uh,
Interesting.
One story that resonates with that is the
I actually
Vision
not to
Quest.
not I just got to throw my opinion in here for a second. I feel like the Native American culture would have many examples
Yes.
of potentially third man syndrome like occurrences.
I mean, I don't care what anyone says, bro. There is something with the Native American spiritualism that is just so like
It's unique for sure.
it
It's
really
special.
to me, if I was going to believe in anything else or like really dive into any cultural like religious type of things, I feel like the Native American beliefs are very like real.
I mean,
I would
I
say
don't
they're
know because I don't want
very.
to claim that I can like sit here and be like they believe in this because I would definitely say something
I
very
just well,
offensive and wrong.
I think it's
I
like
don't.
more like I think it's the way of living,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
think it's the like the emphasis on like the planet and like giving back and like knowing that like we don't own any of this. It is our job to take care of it,
Mm,
and that's simply like what we're called to do here.
yeah.
Type of thing. That our time is our time when it's here, and when it's not, it's all about giving back in order to keep life moving forward, type of thing. I just feel like, yeah, I mean, even going into the Bible, I feel like that was really what the same principles were originally. I think we've added a lot more to it.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think like the main goal has always been, like, hey, take care of like where you're at, and love other people, love like the things around you, just love life, and try and pursue it and keep it preserved. So it's
Yeah.
like, to me, out of any of them, I'm like, okay, like there's something there. There's something there. But
Checks out.
yeah. Well, we have as an example, we have the Vision Quest and Spirit Guides. Many Native American tribes, particularly among the Plains and the Lakota tribes, practice the Vision Quest. And this is a rite of passage that involves fasting and isolation in nature. And during this time, individuals often report experiencing spiritual visions or feelings accompanied by a guiding spirit, which could take the form of an animal, an ancestral figure, or an abstract guiding presence. These spirits are believed to offer guidance, strength, and protection, much like the third man syndrome. The third man syndrome.
Yeah. I would love to have an encounter with an ancestral, like person of my my family line. Like
Yeah.
someone way back when.
And it's like, so what's it like?
What's it like
What do
back
you,
there?
Like, what do you go through?
Were we one of the good ones?
Yeah, yeah. Were we the bad ones? Or were we the good ones? And they're gonna be like,
I have some bad news for you, kiddo.
Yeah.
Anytime someone calls you kiddo, you're like,
You're like, I did bad. This is bad news. This is bad
Yep,
news
yep.
all around. Well, in such experiences, the individual may feel that a spiritual presence is with them, guiding them through these trials and helping them endure the hardships of isolation. And this could very well be interpreted. I definitely said that.
He said interpreted. These things can really be
It's been a
interpreted.
long day, man.
I
It's
don't
been
blame
a
you.
long
I don't blame you.
day.
It has been a long day for you.
Well, this could be interpreted. I almost said it again.
Interpreted.
As a form of the third man syndrome. Though, again, like we were talking about before, it's kind of through a cultural or a spiritual lens. It is rooted in spiritual beliefs and rituals more than it is anything psychological.
Mm.
So, in Sufism, the mystical branch of Islam, there is a deep emphasis on the presence of God in all things and the experience of the divine in everyday life. Pretty much kind of like what we've always been taught as well in church and school and all that kind of stuff. Sufis often describe moments of heightened spiritual awareness during which they feel the constant, though invisible, presence of God. Kind of already see the
Very similar.
third man syndrome type of thing along with what we practice as well. So we have the Sufi experience of the Tawhid, which is the oneness with God. Sufi mystics speak of experiencing the presence of the divine in moments of extreme duress, where they feel surrounded by God's protection or guidance. In certain stories, Sufi saints describe being comforted by a mysterious presence or receiving divine guidance when alone or in danger. This often is experienced during moments of deep meditation, prayer, or a spiritual journey in general. This invisible guiding presence during times of crisis mirrors the experience of the third man syndrome, where the individual feels reassured and protected by an unseen force. In one famous Sufi story, the poet and mystic Rumi describes how, during his spiritual journey, he felt a constant, unseen presence guiding him. This presence was not a physical person, but a spiritual guide offering wisdom and comfort in times of hardship.
I wanted to recall this. This is Hinduism,
Islam.
or this is
Islamic.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to remember.
Which, I mean,
I couldn't remember
you
if we
could-
moved on from
Yeah.
from Native American or not,
Yeah.
so I didn't want to like be stupid.
So it's, I mean, you can already see right there. I mean, that's very much what we have come to believe in practice too, you know, in church, as far as, you know, the deep meditation or deep thought and prayer and all that kind of stuff, and feeling the presence of God, not in the crazy wild, you know, the wind or an earthquake, but it's about the silence. It's about the, you know, that's where you can hear God the most type of thing. And you can kind of see that resonate as well with that, you know.
Yeah.
But again, that also kind of coincides with the third man syndrome. The very, you know, in times of stress or in times of, you know, heightened, I guess, awareness or
There's some
heightened,
kind
you know,
of
senses, something,
some kind of
is
like
there.
higher being of some kind,
Yeah.
whether it's God or Sufi or whatever. There's a common trait is that there is something guiding you and watching over you and like
Yeah.
protecting you.
Yeah.
Now this I really want you to tell me about, because
Yeah.
I think Greek and Roman mythology is very
sick.
cool.
Yeah, it's sick. So I found this one. This is ancient Greek and Roman mythology, also known as divine interventions. So in ancient Greek and Roman mythology, there are numerous stories where gods or divine figures intervene in the lives of mortals, often appearing in disguise or through invisible guidance. You can find this in the story of Odysseus and Athena. The Greek hero Odysseus, I said it once, I couldn't say it the second time, is guided and protected by
He
the goddess
interpreted.
Athena. Stop it, bro. I'm sorry.
I think it's more that I just really like the sound of interpreted.
Interpreted.
I wish that interpreted was the way you said it. Like, I wish that was the real
that's
word.
the way you're supposed to say it. Yeah, I wish I was supposed to say it that way too.
Then it wouldn't have sounded so dumb.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good. Well, the Greek hero Odysseus is guided and protected by the goddess Athena throughout his long journey home after the Trojan War. Though she is often invisible to him, Athena offers Odysseus counsel and guidance in critical moments. Her presence is described as a constant source of protection, offering him strategic advice and strength. And at times, Odysseus feels that he is not alone in his struggles and that a divine presence is watching over him, even though he cannot see Athena. This divine individual guidance in times of hardship, again, resembles the third man syndrome, where the person feels an unseen protector even though there's no physical person there. So it is quite
Athena's
quite
a pretty
interesting.
crazy
Goddess.
yeah, goddess,
Yeah.
archetype, character, person.
Her story is
Her story.
pretty sad. She has a really sad story. I'm not gonna get into that because
We should totally do
some
an
Greek
episode on some
mythology.
Greek mythology. That
That-
would be dope.
that and
We should just do mythology in general, like different episodes, different parts.
That would
So
actually be
like we'll
cool.
do a
Yeah.
Greek mythology, Norse mythology. Norse would also
Man,
be
Norse
one of our
mythology
favorites.
oh man, dude, that
Oh,
one
man.
would be dude. There's so much with Norse mythology that's just like, wow.
We've
Like,
we've
wow.
mentioned Loki on this podcast probably 7 times when it comes
Yeah.
to tricksters and stuff
well,
like
because
that.
it's such a like an archetype in every religion.
Yeah.
There's always someone like I'm gonna mess with you. You know, like there's always
I'm gonna steal your
something like,
keys.
I'm gonna steal your keys. Shout out Duendes.
The Duendes.
Shout out Weirdness in the Woods.
Weirdness in the Woods.
No, but across various cultures and religious traditions, there are numerous accounts of people experiencing a comforting and guiding or protective presence during times of great duress, suffering, or danger, like we kind of went over. These cross-cultural examples kind of suggest the idea that an invisible presence providing comfort or guidance in times of peril is not just unique to one religion, that's what I was kind of going towards. It's like you can find it everywhere throughout any time of any type of religion that comes up.
No, I think
There
that's
is
fair.
something there where when you need help, there's something there to give you that help, you know. But it is a common human experience that transcends culture, religion, and time. And I think that's what makes this so fascinating, because it almost does leave you to kind of question, like, is a lot of what we go through, is it spiritual, or is it just seen through a spiritual lens? And maybe that's why we interpret it that way.
Yeah.
You know, not to knock any religious values or anything like that, but I do think that there are some things that could possibly be explained in time that we just don't understand yet. But I think there's that with everything, you know.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of things that are unknown to us now that years down the line, 2,000 years or something, maybe we're just like, oh, well, it was this, you know, it was this the whole time, you know, type of thing. Same thing with a lot of, I mean, people didn't understand why people were dying of cancer before they had
That's so
ways
funny.
of
You
detecting
and me have the
cancer,
same brain, dude.
you
Because
know?
that's literally what I was thinking. I was like, yeah, you know, that's kind of like treatments for cancer and how like they couldn't work with it, but like
Yeah.
a long time ago. But as things progress and change and
Yeah.
adapt, and we learn.
Well, I mean, same thing if, you know, if someone's having like a stroke or like a heart attack or something, people will probably think like, oh, they're demon possessed, you know, just because they,
Yeah.
and it's not like knocking anyone about it. It's just like you have no other information to go off of. So you're just going to be like, well, we believe in the Bible, we believe in demons, so I guess bro is just possessed.
Burn
you know?
the witch.
Yeah, you know, like that's how stuff like that happens, you know.
Yeah.
You just don't really have an understanding of that. And it's like when you don't, you kind of just associate it with whatever closeness you can associate it with.
Whatever you know at the time.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, let's go into the discussion in general. And, you know, we have some resources, some books, if anyone's like interested in all that kind of stuff. We'll take a look at that, and we'll just talk about how we're feeling about this whole situation. All right, guys. If anyone is looking to learn more about just this phenomena in general, from any open-minded yet scientific, you know, side, because I really wanted to focus on, like, you know, we could explain everything away religiously, you know, or we can explain it away culturally, but I did want to find some resources, and like a lot of the resources I use like for the notes today were from a very scientific side, you know, like a healthy skeptical side, open-minded, but you know, still taking science into account. But yeah, I just thought I would you know, give you guys some of the resources that I used for today. So we have, and again, this is by the guy that DeFrancisco was telling his story to, which is John Geiger. And this book is called The Third Man Factor, Surviving the Impossible. And this book basically just examines the third man syndrome in general, and it examines it through a combination of firsthand accounts, historical examples, and psychological history and theory. He interviews survivors of extreme situations such as mountaineers, explorers, and astronauts, and considered both the scientific explanations as well as, you know, the spiritual and stuff like that. Obviously, he talked to 9/11 survivor as well, so you can find that story probably in a lot more detail in that book if you're interested. And Geiger is also super interested in the phenomena just in general, but he approaches it again from a scientific perspective and explores the psychological theories such as, like we were talking about before, hallucinations, sensory deprivation, and just the brain's ability to create things, in your time of need, pretty
Yeah.
much. But yeah, so we also have Hallucinations by Oliver Sacks. He is actually a neurologist, which I find like he probably has a lot to say about these,
I would love to have a neurologist on the podcast.
So would I, bro, because it's like, I have no idea. Can you, like, check me if I have autism or something? Like, do you know what's happening to my brain? Because
I would love to just, like, periodically have a different, like, person of a different job.
I would love to have, like, an archaeologist.
Like, and it could be, like, anything, though. It doesn't even have to be, like, the things that ends in ists. Because, like, you could be... like a teacher, a professor, you could be a janitor for all I care.
I would love to have
just,
like a university professor's like opinion on certain
I want to just
things.
learn things from people who like
know
are
things.
yeah, exactly.
Just know things because we know nothing.
we
understand
took
anything.
We took our education growing up for granted because
by going to the schools we went to. No. Shout out elementary and middle school.
Elementary was good.
Those are the ones. High school, I learned not a single thing. I learned how to keep to myself and how people bully people. That's how that's what I learned from high school.
I learned how to disassociate myself from my friends to be with a woman.
I understand. I also might have done the same thing as well my freshman year.
Yeah, it's great.
It's a great time.
Oh God, the stories we could tell. I'm just thinking of some in my brain.
Valentine's Day,
like,
Joey's love life. That's what we're talking about.
I was thinking about yours.
No,
unless it was.
what?
Are we thinking of the same story?
Oh, I was just thinking we could just bring up Joey's love life.
Oh, maybe we.
Valentine's Day.
Maybe we don't. Maybe we not do that.
You're like, you know what? I'm gonna act like I didn't say
I mean,
anything.
no,
now.
it's fine. We can do that, but I'm just letting Chad know it's gonna be a short episode.
Short but sad.
We'll do a chill cast.
Yeah, that'll be the chill cast episode.
Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
Back to Oliver Sacks. Again, bro's a neurologist who, in the book Hallucinations, he explores the various types of hallucinations, including those that occurred during extreme stress, trauma, and isolation circumstances. And again, a lot of those are often linked to the third man syndrome. And he delves into the neuroscience behind hallucinations and how the brain interprets reality in general in moments of, again, sensory deprivation, exhaustion, or intense fear. The one thing I really do like about him is he is someone who doesn't dismiss the unusual experiences, but he looks for neurological explanations.
Gotcha.
But not all of them can be explained. So that's something that I really do appreciate about someone like him, where he's a very smart guy, very analytical guy, but he's also willing to see that some cases just don't all check the boxes of a neurological, disorder or anything happening during stress. So interesting book. Highly recommend the read. I haven't read it. I read some excerpts for this, though, and I was like, guy's fascinated. He has a lot of big words, though, so it's a little complicated.
2025, I want to get much better with my reading.
I need to expand
my
my vocabulary.
It doesn't necessarily have to be to like expand my knowledge. It could just be fictional stories. But I want to get back into reading. I feel like I've just lost that in my life.
I've asked for so many books for my birthday.
I got a new Stephen King one.
Really?
I got I wish I could remember which one it was. It's something like...
Is it Dr. Sleep?
No. It's something like the cover is like this, not cabin, but like lone house, like in the middle of like snow or something. I can't remember what it is.
I think I don't remember the name, but I'm pretty sure I know what book it is. I think it might be about the girl that
I don't know. Oh wait, it's Misery.
Oh, Misery. Yeah,
Misery.
Yeah.
That's the one I got.
Okay, highly recommend reading it.
Yeah?
It's a good. I've watched the movie.
Okay.
I haven't read the book, but if the movie is anything like the book, It's
I'll
wild.
have to check it out. Yeah,
It
because
is
I
wild.
want to get into it. I have the other Stephen King book that's just like the entire book is his shorter stories.
Yeah, yeah,
And so
yeah.
I've read like maybe 4 or 5 of
You
those
got into those for a while.
for a
You're
while.
reading like
But
like
maybe it's time I finally dip my toe back into full novels
you
because
should.
it's just gonna take me a while.
Yeah, it's a daunting task.
It's a daunting
it's a
task.
daunting task when you're always busy.
Yeah.
like you can't just sit down and read.
Yeah.
You know. But we also have just a couple more books here. We have The Belief Instinct, The Psychology of Souls, Destiny, and the Meaning of Life, and this is by Jesse Baring. So this is actually kind of where I got a lot of like the more spiritual aspects of everything. He's a psychologist and explores the human tendency to believe in souls, gods, and other unseen forces. And that's what the book talks about. It's very, very cool. He argues that the belief in such concepts is deeply embedded in human psychology and in human evolution, suggesting that it could help explain the phenomena like the third man syndrome. And the book dives into how our minds are wired to detect agency, purpose, and intent in the world itself, which could explain why we often feel an unseen presence in time of crisis. He approaches the belief from a scientific standpoint, and he examines how evolutionary psychology and neuroscience contribute to our perception of the divine or the one or God. While he explains the third man syndrome through the lens of, a cognitive bias, obviously, he's very biased on the psychology part and the brain's tendency to attribute human characteristics or behavior to a god, animal, an object. He does so with an open mind and open acknowledgement of the deep human nature of these experiences. So even though it's pretty biased, it's still very respectful of like the human tendencies that we have to associate certain things, as a higher being or just a sign in general, but highly recommend the read. It's really cool. Like if you're into spirituality and science and all that kind of stuff, I think I'm diving a lot more into that kind of stuff just in general with like how do you explain your faith through scientific lenses and stuff like that. So highly recommend. I'm actually probably going to pick that book up myself.
For sure,
and,
dude.
read the whole thing. So
It's
But,
super interesting.
yeah.
This has been a great topic. I think this was really fun to look into, and like I said, I didn't know a thing about it before we started. So like getting to hear these different stories and um like accounts from people who like know what they're talking about
yeah.
is very interesting.
Yeah.
It's super cool. Like I wonder what you must feel like after being someone who's experienced like the third man syndrome. Like can an encounter with something like that like change you, like
Yeah,
can
yeah.
it like make you see the world differently if you like, or is it quite literally just a comforting space to your mind? Is it like
Yeah.
once it's over, do you just kind of feel content or safer, or does it like change you?
Yeah, I have a feeling it probably would. And you know what? It reminds me a lot of the near death experience in certain ways.
I agree.
It reminds me of that, like it traverses culture, it
Yeah.
traverses religion.
Shameless plug. Go
You
check
don't
out
check out the near death experience
Yeah.
part 1 and 2.
and two. There's
Yeah.
two of them.
Yeah, there's two of
Check
them.
it out.
Two of them. Second one is more story based. So if you
Yeah,
want the stories, the scary stories, definitely check out the second
Pretty
one.
good. Pretty good.
But no, it has such commonalities on that. Like it definitely stretches beyond the thought process of like, oh well, this was God, or this was this, or this was that. It's a very like, atheists have near death experiences.
Mhm.
People who are completely different cultures, come from completely different parts of the world, have had the third man syndrome.
Yeah.
Like they have
Yeah.
had an experience where they have had a divine being come and guide them or reassure them throughout what's happening. I will
Mhm.
actually say 127 Hours, the movie. It's with James Franco.
Mm.
It's actually, I think he might be one of the only people who's actually in the movie. It's a very like he's the
Like,
cast
the
pretty much,
single-
type
yeah.
of thing. It's based on real life. It's based on a real story of a guy who was out rock climbing, I believe, and he got stuck. And like I think a boulder like fell in on his
Oh.
arm, and it kept him trapped there. And you guessed why it's called 127 hours. It's because he was trapped for 127 hours.
Oh my gosh.
And what they don't put in the movie, but is actually talked about, he's talked about in interviews and stuff like that, the real guy. He had what was to him the third man syndrome, and it was a kid.
Mm.
And he talks about he saw it very vividly. He saw this kid. And in his mind's eye as well, he had seen a man holding this kid's hand and all this stuff, and he instantly knew it was his son.
Oh wow.
He has no kids at this point in time.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And in that moment, he just knew he was the guy that was holding the kid's hand, and the guy had no arm. And so he cut his arm off, and he lived. And years
Wow.
later, after the experience, he had a son, and the kid looked just like the kid that he saw when he was
Wow.
going to die. So it's
That's
like,
crazy.
it's very interesting. And what I've noticed from a lot of these stories is a lot of the time the third man syndrome aren't people They're
Mhm.
not like, people that, oh, my mom died and my mom came and told me this or whatever.
Yeah, it's not people you recognize.
Yeah. But what do you do when it's a future thing?
Yeah,
Someone
that's
you've
where
never
it gets a
met,
little
but you are
different.
meeting,
Yeah.
in the future. And I find that story very fascinating. But
To
that,
me, I almost don't know if I would personally consider that to be quite third man syndrome, and
But then
maybe
what do
just
you-
something else.
then it's like, what do you describe that as?
That's
man?
the
Like,
question.
what
I don't
is
know.
that? Like what is
Because like
that?
I said before, I think in my opinion, the third man syndrome, and this is just me, I just think it would either have to be a trick of the mind, whether it be hallucination or coping,
I'm more on
or
that side as well.
some kind of higher entity helping you out. Because like
It's
and that's
got to be
something
one
I
or the other.
it's one
It's got to be.
I
one
wanted
or
to
the
mention
other.
that too, that I like that you brought up that a lot of these different cultures have the same, not like
like relatively the
God and
same-
Jesus and all that stuff. It's just, but there is a higher entity that wants the best for us and stuff like that, and that people experience things in any of their native cultures that can lead them to the right path in times of crisis.
Yeah.
And so I think that's interesting, and so I do think that it's either you're sleep deprived, you're stressed, you're scared, you're worried, and your mind will just do what it can to help you process that information,
Yeah.
or something bigger than us, whatever it is, whether it be God or something else, is coming down to like kind of pat you on the back and be like,
Yeah.
this is gonna be all right.
Yeah, it's like you're good. You're good.
It's okay.
Well, we want to leave you guys with a question, like we always do.
As always. Dude.
Joey,
When did we start doing that?
I don't know. It's been a while. It's been a while since we've technically had 3 main topics, because we definitely went over our discussion
Yeah.
more than we usually do.
Yeah.
But it was a good one. This was like
It was a good episode.
yeah.
I
I'm
enjoyed
happy
this
with
topic.
this. But yeah, why don't you leave
For
chat off with the
sure.
question today?
So, chat, have you or anyone experienced the third man syndrome while under either an extreme amount of stress or a life-threatening event? Let us know. We would love to hear stories. As always, you could email us at thewoodsmanpod, or not at thewoodsmanpod at gmail.com. You could email us there.
You can DM us as well on Instagram or X or wherever you. Well, not wherever you want, because that's
Wherever
only
you get your
socials
Instagram
we
and X.
have, but wherever you get your Insta and X, and that's at the Woodsman Pod. So
At Woodsman Pod. Not the.
You're right.
Don't want to spread
I goofed.
misinformation.
Yep.
No, you're
Drop
good.
Drop
Drop
the.
the.
Yeah. No, but we're super excited for season 4. Super excited for what's to come up. We actually know what next week's topic is going to be, so it's pretty great.
Yep.
So come back and join us on the next episode, season 4, episode 3, the Woodsman Pod. We're your hosts, Brent Murphy.
And Joey Rucker.
Later, Gators. Ah,
Yeah. Bye.
that one.
The Woodsman Podcast is actively reading and responding to anything and everything on Instagram and our email.
If you have any questions, comments, or concerns about the show, or would like to possibly be on the show, you can email us at thewoodsmanpod@gmail.com.
Make sure to keep up with all things Woodsman related on Instagram and X at WoodsmanPod.
Don't forget to rate, like, and subscribe to the Woodsman Podcast wherever you get your podcasts, with video exclusively on YouTube and Patreon.
Make sure to follow our personal accounts at Strange Kids and Piemaster J on all platforms. The Woodsman Podcast is co-produced by Brent Murphy and Joey Rucker.
Recorded at Elite Sound Studios, located in the Inland Empire.
Written by Brent Murphy.
Technical support by Eric Bessero.
Video editing by Joey Rucker. And blood, sweat, and tears by all of us.
Any additional content by the Woodsman Podcast may not be used without our permission. Copyright Cabin 13 Productions.
And remember, say hi to your imaginary friend.